Just because I was in the room without you, and computers hate me for no reason.
That is probably it, actually. And it is entirely possible that is exactly it.
The Titans of Terror, rocking the screen with new thrills in the strangest battle ever filmed. Welcome back to Entertainment Rebooted, specifically our continuing series, Cinema Revisited, the Universal Monster Movies. I am joined, as usual, by my esteemed co-host, DJ. Say hi, DJ.
Hello.
So, DJ, tonight's film was none other than 1943's Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. We're going to go over the good, the bad, the ugly, and the iconic, of course, and also talk about what we would do if we were given the prompt, I guess, to make this film for a modern audience. But before we do any of that, let's catch our audience up for those who have not seen Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Could you give us a brief plot summary, please?
So, this one actually takes its plot points and its story from two other films. Well, two series of films, technically, but two specific films. And that is the last Wolfman film, which was
The Wolfman.
The Wolfman.
Yeah.
And the last Frankenstein film, which was Ghost of Frankenstein.
Right.
But it does take elements from all of the Frankenstein films, specifically the first one and the last one. But it takes place 4 years after the Wolfman, where the Wolfman himself, Talbot, that's his name, right? Talbot?
Yep, Lawrence Talbot,
Larry. Talbot is in his grave. A couple of grave robbers come and disturb him, letting the moon touch him, which brings him back to life, though they do mention that it's like he's sleeping. So it's almost like he's an immortal cursed. And he is found, hospitalized, treated by a doctor. He has a couple episodes of turning to wolf. No one believes him, so he runs away to find the gypsy woman from the last Wolfman film, and then she tells him about someone that can help him. And so they cross Europe to find the Frankenstein village of, what was it called?
Valsia?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Valsia or...
But they go through the town and find out that Frankenstein is actually dead. So he goes to the castle, finds the Frankenstein monster, meets with him, tries to find the journal, doesn't find the Frankenstein monster, shows him where it's supposed to be, but he doesn't find it. Then he does find a picture of Frankenstein's daughter, the Baroness, who then he tries to get in touch with. Gets him and the Baroness talk it out. He gets angry. They all go to the castle together.
Sorry. Her name is Malevis. I'm looking.
So anyway, they end up. They all end up working together to get Frankenstein's journal, which they find, and then they start putting the equipment back. The doctor, who comes looking for the Wolfman, promises the town that he can rid them of the Frankenstein monster forever by destroying it by artificial means, the same way that he was created. And so he starts putting the machine together again, promising both to kill the Wolfman, who wants death, to no longer be cursed to kill anyone, and rid the town of the monster. But
Visaria,
that's it. So he ends up getting a little too obsessed with it and pumps him full of juices instead, and ends up giving the monster more power, and then him and the Wolfman fight, and it literally just ends that way.
Well, it ends with the dam blowing up.
It ends with the dam blowing up and rush in the sweeping away everything, and it just ends with literally on a shot of the waterfall going down, blowing everything away.
It actually has to be the most abrupt ending in a Universal film. Like, even Dracula and the first Frankenstein did not end as abruptly as this one did.
That's true. It was very abrupt. But that's the film. That's what happens. It's pretty verbatim actually. With some saying dialogue and character development. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Good, bad, ugly, iconic. What is good about 1943's Frankenstein meets the Wolfman?
It's just a really entertaining film. I really enjoyed the continuity of it. It follows a lot of the more recent films have been doing this with Universal, where they take continuity from other films and then continue that down. This is technically the 5th Frankenstein film, the 3rd Wolfman film, but the 2nd of the Wolfman part.
Yeah.
And just, continuing that on. The actors who play these characters, like Lon Chaney, Bela Lugosi, they do a really good job of embodying the characters that they continue on with. It was interesting, though, because they did do a little bit of change, because Lon Chaney played the Frankenstein monster last time and the Wolfman, so they had to cast somebody else. First, so they chose Bela Lugosi, which was interesting because Igor's brain was put into him, so it was kind of like a fun, Easter egg almost to that. I don't know if that was meant on purpose or if he just was the one for the job, but it was kind of funny.
I think that they meant it on purpose because apparently in the original cut, he actually spoke still. So it would make sense to not just do a voiceover, but casting Bela Lugosi as Frankenstein's monster so that you don't have to do the voice work for his dialogue bits.
That's fair.
But they cut all of his dialogue out due to Bela Lugosi's very heavy Hungarian accent, causing the test audience to not stop laughing at what he had to say.
That's fair. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was just a good film overall, but a really good bit of it was just that continuity was really strong, and the characters were strong. It's just well acted. Even the background characters are really well acted.
The background characters were really well acted. I have to say that the ensemble of the villagers, all of them that had dialogue, did really well. From the bartender, I forget his name. I kept calling him Teddy Roosevelt. And then, of course, Dwight Fry was actually one of the villagers. So that was pretty cool to see him back in a Universal film. It'd been a while since he's been in anything. That I think the last one he was in was probably the first Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd seen him since.
And the other thing about it was the background characters in general too, not only were they well acted, but they felt real. They a lot of the Universal films, they feel like caricatures, right, or almost like Muppets of people. They don't feel like real people. They're exaggerated. And this one, they felt like a real village with real issues and differencing of opinions.
Yeah.
Whereas earlier ones, they were all just the town wasn't a character in the first Frankenstein film. There wasn't really individuality. The whole town was a character. In the Wolfman film, that little town village he was from was a character.
Right.
It didn't have uniqueness. This one is the first one in any of the Universals. I've really felt that there's significant unique differentiating characteristics between people in throughout the. There's a lot of traveling in this film too.
Yeah.
So there's the multiple towns and places, and they feel unique and different, rather than just this town is one monolith of people that think the same way.
That's true. Yeah, they all.
The Invisible Man was the closest to kind of breaking that a little bit, the first one, but it still carried a lot of that. This village is all the same.
Yeah, they all kind of merge together in the mob. The mob is the character, not necessarily the individuals within the mob. And there's definitely some drama and stuff like that that's going on in this village. So even Teddy Roosevelt, the town bartender, seems to have his own character and his own thoughts and how he would like to deal with things, and how people react to the mayor and things like that are all different. Instead of them all just being let's go with the mayor's thing. Literally,
the mayor actually has an argument with one of with one of the people. That felt more real, than I was used to in these films. I think actually the last one we watched was not the Invisible. It was the Mummy's Curse.
Yeah.
was actually another one where the town felt kind of unique, but still not quite to this level, because a lot of the unique characters were from out of town. This one really sold it to me.
Yeah.
So I liked that.
Definitely. For me, I would say that the good is just camera work, cinematography, and sets.
Oh, the sets were gorgeous.
Yeah, like I don't know if I would go full on like that's like iconic necessarily, because it's not necessarily the defining trait of the movie, but it is very good. It's praiseworthy. Like early on in the film, they're in like a village in London, and you can kind of tell that it's an older village, but it's also like been built up enough, and literally through the window they have like smoke and stuff coming off of the chimneys, so it feels like a very real building in a very real village, town, city thing. Overall the set work was just really good. They went back more to the traditional roots of the first film with the village. The only thing is that continuously, this is just going to bother me, they continue to not have good continuity when it comes to Frankenstein's castle.
Yeah, it's been different in every single one.
Like in every single one, and they keep the same. They keep the story, and they're like, he blew up in that castle, and then it looks over, and it's just like, that castle by the dam, that wasn't there before. There was never a dam. He was on top of the mountain.
Yeah, that was the one they retcon. I made the joke when we were watching it, like, look, it's Universal's worst retcon, even though they've retconned every single one of the Frankenstein movies by changing the way his castle and at one point his house and castle were different on the estate, but then they became one building at one point, then they were different again, then they were one, and they were different locations. It's like there is no consistency in the castle whatsoever.
Yeah.
The audience doesn't remember that. We do. We watched them within a month of each other. We know what's happening.
That's true. For us, it's not 12 years. It's like...
That is the thing. Like these
12 months.
5 Frankenstein films happened over the course of over a decade.
Yeah.
So there's, 2 to 3 years between each set of film. People probably don't notice as much, especially when that's not really the point of like films at that time were meant to be like stage play-ish. So they're probably used to in continuity being a thing. It wasn't that big of a thing. We've been spoiled with like set consistency being a normal modern convenience where we notice really fast that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
But I do know like the older I get, the better special effects we get, the less tolerant I am of like inconsistencies. So...
Oh, it's true, because it's like, why did you animate the village differently than last time? Couldn't you have just taken the file and moved it over? But then like also like now we're just like, they have kept sets before. That's the frustrating part about the Frankenstein's inconsistencies, is that they have kept set pieces and used them in multiple films. So it's like, it's not that you don't have them, it's that you forget to use them.
Or they destroyed them. But maybe they thought that each time they think this is going to be the last one, and then they make another one. Oh, nobody's going to love Frankenstein 7. We want Frankenstein 7. Okay, make Frankenstein 7. We destroyed the set. Too bad. Build a new one.
Should we maybe watch the last film for inspirations? No. I want a castle. It better look completely different than last time. And this time I want them destroyed by, let's see, we had an explosion, we had incineration, we had them burned to death twice.
Water.
Give me a dam.
Water. Lava, literal sulfur pit didn't kill him. Sulfur pit. What we'll do it now? Water. Just water.
You'll drown. Just like the little girl.
Oh gosh. Oh no.
Justice comes in full circles.
Oh, that poor little girl didn't deserve to die. She'd be a granny now.
Yeah, probably, actually, with the continuity with the story. Anyway, we've kind of like gotten a little bit off track from the good. Let's get into the bad. What's the bad of this film? Not necessarily like the worst part, but just not great.
The bad for me, it was really good in the first half of the film, and then what hurts it real bad is it loses its soul halfway through the movie. Like almost exactly half. I actually remember we actually stopped halfway through the film and then continued on, And the first half, I was like, this is great. And then immediately after restarting, it's like, what happened to the movie we just watched?
It went from like really interesting horror elements to kind of more campy and like loose.
And it started out really like the Wolfman's journey across Europe to get a cure. And it was like really interesting. And then it just turns into like a weird, like surreal. It turned into Son of Frankenstein, where it was just very off from the tone of the other films.
Yeah.
Very suddenly, and got a little campy, kind of like Invisible Woman does, where it's like you have a series of films that have a tone, and you're just like, screw that tone, start over. It's like, no, but you had a tone that matched. He had this somber, like almost hopeless. I hate myself. I'm a monster. I need to die. Like very morbid thing, and then it just gets really campy and weird, and that breaks that mood a little bit. I was actually kind of hoping maybe there'd be more. It doesn't. It could still end. I mean, most of the films have ended in tragedy for the monsters, and I think the Wolfman is the most tragic of the, because he's the most relatable. He's not a villain. The monster may be confused, but he's killed a lot of people and doesn't really show remorse for it.
It's true.
Dracula obviously had no remorse. The Mummy did what he felt. The second Mummy was a tool. The first Mummy did what he did for himself, and the third one was just a tool of destruction.
And then the Invisible Man was just he was driven mad by his potion, but he was still maniacal in his actions.
Yeah.
Dracula's daughter was tragic in that she wanted to be cured, but at the same time, she also kind of leaned into what she was at the end, where she was like,
Wolfman has had 2 films where he's fought against the nature that's trying to take him over.
Mm-hmm.
He is the relatable character, and him getting a sad ending hurts a lot worse than the other monsters. So that actually works. Like that's a really good thing. But the way it gets all kind of campy and just very like the second half of the film is a different film than the previous film. I get it. That halfway part, like basically the movie is one half Wolfman and one half Frankenstein. The problem is that you had this great. It was more than a cameo. This was a crossover.
Yeah,
this was a true crossover, like the earliest, maybe the first film crossover, where it's like a true characters mixing realities.
And it wasn't just like a film series continuity. It was like, no, this is actually like you're bringing both of these worlds together.
But what happened is the Wolfman even himself got, like when he's going through the cave and finds the monster, it's comical and weird and just it doesn't fit the rest of the film. It just tone shifts unnecessarily. They could have had Frankenstein be the bumbling kind of silly creature, but him still be serious. The Wolfman still be serious, but they kind of made him all silly to make him fit, I guess. It's like if a real life character goes into a cartoon world and then becomes a cartoon himself. Like you don't need to change your main character, your lead character's like entire being to make them fit into someone else's universe. You shouldn't have to do that. Leave him the same.
Right.
So that was just kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you a lot with that. Like that is a pretty bad aspect of this movie. I'm trying to think of like, I'd say that maybe the tone shift with the gypsy character.
Oh, okay.
She had a very odd shift. In the first Wolfman, she is pretty clearly like, no, you're cursed. That's your state. You're cursed. I can't do anything about it. It's a tragedy. But I can't help you. And she's very adamant the entire time. I can't help you.
Right.
Like he does go to her multiple times in that movie.
Yeah, that's actually good.
And
I forgot about that a little bit. Yeah.
And she does give him help by giving him a talisman that prevents him from changing.
But he doesn't take it seriously.
No, he takes it seriously, but he takes it as a overall pendant of protection. And he gives it to his love interest to protect her because he did not understand that it was protecting him from his curse. He thought it was to protect her from danger. That's why he gave it to her.
He didn't believe that. Well, no, I know what you mean. He didn't believe that the thing would cure him or help him, so he gave it to somebody else. Yeah.
But anyway, it was just kind of odd that he goes back to her, and then in this time, at first also her tone shift, like it's another tone shift too with her, because at first she's like, "Oh, you poor tragic creature," and talks about this, and like we can go to this Dr. Frankenstein who's supposed to be able to cure people.
That I kind of get to a point. They don't show it, but I kind of feel like she had a bit of remorse for letting him go. Like she feels like, I should have taken care of you last time. It was my fault. I will do it this time. Like you're right. My son killed a lot of people and I harbored him. Like, who am I if I can't show you at least some kind of mercy?
Well, yeah, like
and she's been traveling Europe. I figured she had been in England. She left England for the main continent and was like traveling. So I wonder if I just assumed she heard of Frankenstein when she was about. So that's why there's a slight bit of shift. But it is not explained. You have to infer a lot. And it would have been nice for them to say something like her to have said that, like, I'm so sorry. Like, just her to show some emotion to him. Well, besides, I'll take care of you. Like, oh, hey, I feel bad. I shouldn't have left you. That was, you're right. I made a mistake. I'll stick by you, rather than just being like, suddenly, yes.
Well, yeah, like she's suddenly like that, but then also she has like a complete shift in how she even views him.
Yes.
And it's like
less fear and more like motherly coddling. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that just doesn't really work very well. So I'd say that that's bad, because she's a good character and she has good dialogue and it's acted well. The problem is that it kind of ties into yours with a tonal shift, where for some reason halfway through the film, halfway through her character arc, it's not just like gradual change. It is a sudden full-on flip.
Right.
So I would say that that's probably the bad, in my opinion, just because she's a good character. She was very consistent with the original character in the first one, but it feels like about halfway through the film, I almost feel like they had written a sequel to the Wolfman, but then they were like, yeah, Wolfman's great, but let's up the ante. Why don't we tie in another monster to make it a bigger sensation?
And well, so and that also makes sense, because at this point they've made so many sequels of this. You can only have Frankenstein destroy the same town for the 47th time, before you really have to do something different. I feel like, it was really that time where they're like, okay, let's not have 27 Wolfmans and 27 Frankensteins. Let's start putting these monsters together to make them more interesting and up the ante.
Yeah. So I feel like that's kind of what happened, is they developed a very good Wolfman sequel, but then they decided to throw Frankenstein into it. So as a result, there was like some rewriting. And when they had the rewrite, they kind of lost focus on the tone.
Right.
Because they didn't quite know how to tie it in without changing the tone. But they had kept the original beginning.
That's what it feels like, yeah.
Yeah. All right, how about the ugly? What's actually
Bela Lugosi as...
I agree. That's the ugly.
I think this is the one we're both going to hit on, because this is the one thing that was glaringly obvious.
It was bad. Like,
Bela Lugosi doesn't act. He acts. You can't even tell what it is. Like, the movements are wrong. Every other actor that's done the Frankenstein monster did the movements consistently very similar, even with different people.
He's Bela very flamboyant,
yes,
and he's very smooth.
Yes, Bela Lugosi's monster it's weird, it's off-putting, and it just doesn't feel right. That's really all I have to say about it. It just doesn't feel right. He's a good actor, but he just doesn't do Frankenstein right.
No, and it's also a thing too of just it. I think that also Lugosi may have been kind of sick of all the makeup from when he played Igor, because his Frankenstein makeup is very bare minimum. It's literally just, and you can tell like where the cap starts for the head, and then the rest of them is just like his face with like 2 scars. And I know that Frankenstein's monster isn't like the most like makeup heavy, but even Lon Chaney was hard to recognize as Lon Chaney when he was Frankenstein's monster.
Right.
So the fact that you can look at him and just go, oh, that's Bela Lugosi, I think isn't really, it doesn't do the character very good justice.
Yeah, and it just it doesn't fit with the film. He stands out too much.
Yeah.
It's a major inconsistency. He just doesn't feel right for the part.
And he's not very imposing.
No.
Lugosi's not that big of a guy. Chaney is huge for 1940s. And when you see the Wolfman and Frankenstein together, you can tell that they have to do a lot of tricks.
Yeah.
In order to keep Frankenstein looking kind of imposing, but he's not wide enough.
No, he's kind of lanky. It doesn't feel right. Yeah, that's the ugly for me. That's about all I got for that. That was an easy one.
Yeah. No, if they had kept the dialogue, I could see why that would be derailing to the entire film.
Right.
Just, it doesn't fit. It doesn't really feel right. Doesn't look right. So that's easy. How about iconic? What is the thing that like you want to talk about?
The first crossover.
Yeah.
This is the first time in Universal. I think we talked about this. This is like the first time they've done it in cinema. That was at least in major. I think there may have been some I think cartoons had done it a little bit, but in like live action, like a live action actual cinematic event, this is the first. Yeah, crossover where they took, and not only is it a crossover, it's what makes it more than a cameo and a true crossover. Even more than that, it's a shared universe.
Yeah, which is a completely new concept.
Because this isn't like they just took the Frankenstein character and the Wolfman and threw them at each other. They took their entire histories, the worlds, the characters they came from, and every bit of it, and stuck them together.
Yeah, and they made it consistent.
Yes, and they made it consistent. They kept the histories intact.
Yeah.
There was actually a moment where we thought they retconned Frankenstein because kept talking about her father, but she specifies that it was her grandfather that created the monster.
Yeah.
They use Dr. Frankenstein interchangeably between her father and her grandfather quite often, so it gets a little confusing there, which one they're talking about, until she explicitly states it.
Right.
You have the same look as my father or my grandfather who created him. Like, oh, wow, that said it clear. No, we are not retconning the history here. Yeah, there may be some inconsistency in the sets. There may be some inconsistency a little bit in the lore, but for the majority of it,
they've kept it pretty true.
They've kept it pretty true, and they kept really hard to the continuity, which is impressive. Like, this is basically the universal. This is the MonsterVerse, like they wanted to create. This is just done early on. They did it. They made it work. It works really well. Yeah, we talked about in the bad about some of it being rough because of acting choices or issues with slightly manipulating characters to fit their world a little bit.
Right.
But this is the first time they're juxtaposing two characters from different film series into one. And so they probably had to be a little tricky with it. And it seems not desperate, but it's a gamble. Like I can imagine at the time that they're like, I'm not saying that they were like idiots and be like, well, this will never work. Like I'm sure they were like, well, this can work, but we have to be really careful how we do it. Because if we they did really good job of trying to keep the characters to their own worlds. The Wolfman was still Wolfman, even in Frankenstein's world. Frankenstein was still Frankenstein. If they didn't have Bela Lugosi playing it, probably would have been a little better. But it looked like they were really trying to keep the characters consistent to the worlds they came from.
And they tried to give. I just lost my train of thought. They tried to do justice for both of the characters.
Yes,
and they did justice for both of the characters.
Yes.
One of them does not feel like a secondary. Like they managed to make Frankenstein not feel like just a secondary character,
or just being thrown in there for the sake of being thrown in there.
Yeah,
and that was actually, I expected almost that the Frankenstein monster would just kind of show up, but no, they take the Wolfman to his hometown, and they don't just show up there. There's a montage of travel and reasoning to get there.
Right.
And then when they get there, there's purpose behind it. It's not just, it doesn't feel like they took these two characters. It's not Freddy versus Jason where they're just like it's like a kid taking two dolls and slamming them into each other. Because there are a lot of times with crossovers, it's what it feels like. It feels like they're just there to appease fans or to be in there, and there's no reasoning or purpose for them to have been there.
Right.
Oh, you just took the characters and chucked them into a scene, and there they are. They're fighting.
Perfect.
It's
The
Godzilla versus Transformers. Why are the Transformers there? Why is Godzilla there? Nobody cares. They're fighting each other.
Right.
Okay, but I'd like to know a little of why they're
No. You don't need to.
Exactly. But this does for a first crossover, it does an amazing job. It actually makes me wonder how so many films over the years have botched it because they did it right the first time. It's not a perfect film, and there's some issues, but a lot of the issues are with casting and specific choices made in the film, not the crossover itself.
Yeah.
That part was done really well, and it's impressive.
Definitely. I guess for me, the iconic part is honestly the Wolfman. He's still the best character in the film.
Fair enough.
Like, yes, they didn't really make Frankenstein's monsters like second fiddle, but Lon Chaney playing Larry Talbot is impressive.
Yeah.
He plays him very, very well. And
consistently.
Up
to the point of him being a little oogly with the ladies, a little more than is uncomfortable. Like, he gets that creepy factor on.
Yeah, like
he continues it.
Yeah, he's still consistent. It's not like he died 4 years later, he's suddenly like a completely different person. It really feels like it just picked up from where they left him off. So I would say that Lon Chaney is probably the iconic part of this film.
He is the best part. He's just playing himself, and that's just how he is.
It's possible.
If it is, that would make even more sense. But the thing is, he played the monster really well, so I know that's not true.
And he played the mummy too.
Yes, that's true. He did.
He's played a lot of.
So he did a really good job of playing other monsters with different like aspects. That proves to me that it's more than just him playing himself. Yeah. Even if that is him playing himself, he's playing it really well. He's doing a really good job of consistently being that character.
Well, and also if he's just playing himself, then it's amazing casting.
That's true too.
So there's that. But I would just say that Lon Chaney is the iconic part for me of this movie. He is the best part of the film. So, DJ, let's say that we are in 2024 right now. Universal comes up to you and they let you know that they're thinking about doing an amazing crossover with their classic Frankenstein's monster and Wolfman lore. How would you make this film for modern audiences?
For one thing, the one thing that I would definitely do is with this one in mind, I would leave everything that the Wolfman goes through almost entirely intact and just give it more detail. There's a lot of the film where you can see his like internal struggling. Like the first half of this film is absolutely solid. Mm-hmm. I can't even think of really much complaints. Like they just do a really good job. I would like to give a little less. It feels a little rushed to get the Wolfman into the picture. I would take a little more time before he gets discovered, where he's like, maybe even a slight montage of him like murdering people over the months, and he's just like the guilt mixed with his shame is just destroying him, and then maybe he gets injured or something because when he's laying down on the ground, it shows that he busted out of his thing and gets all the way to town before he like succumbs to his injuries after dying. Is a little. That's the only weird part there. Like it feels rushed. It doesn't give him a lot. I give him a little more time to develop in the first half of the film. But then what I would also do is I would show Frankenstein's monster character juxtaposed against it. I would have them both lead the beginning, not just one or the other. I'd have him lead, and then I'd have the Frankenstein's monster character kind of being discovered or shown to be alive, or even a hint of it, and bring those two characters together more naturally. Because this one of the things this one does feel like is it does feel like a Wolfman film that has Frankenstein in it. We talked about it being better than that because it goes to his town and gives some lore to him, but the Frankenstein monster itself doesn't really get much of shine in this. Just the world that he's from.
Right.
Especially the daughter of Frankenstein and the doctor who tried to bring him back. It feels more like a Frankenstein film where the doctor is the focus, not the monster. I'd like to get more focus on the monster. And then from there, once he gets to the monster's town, the monster is a little more aware, and I would have him speak. But I would definitely have him speak. At this point, what they had him speak in the first and second one at different moments, but they keep doing this thing where they have him speak and then take it away from him, then have him speak and take it away from him. I would go all in on the he's talking and he's perfectly like, because it's Igor's brain is in him at this point. He's clear spoken and calculated.
Right.
I would make him more of a Machiavellian villain than a monster at this point. Now he's a monster on the inside and the outside. He's clever. He's manipulative. He's whatever. But what I would have him do is all the scenes early on show him fumbling about and getting out of his position. And then you don't see him for a while in the film. When the Wolfman runs into him, it actually turns out that he's already been out for some time. So we think he's just getting out, but it's actually, the twist is it's been some years and he's formed in like an empire of sorts. Like he's on top of and in control of things.
That could be interesting.
It would just be fun to have him, not like Momster, like just like calculated, like he's controlling things behind the scenes while acting dumb. Because that's Igor. Igor is the better villain. The monster is just a force of nature. But now you have a force of nature with Igor's mind. That interested me so much in the last one. And to not use that seems like a disservice. Put that to use. Make the monster a twisted villain that is... now he's the real monster. He's not sympathetic anymore. He has leaned into it completely. Now the Wolfman is the sympathetic character. And their fight is him learning that does it because he gets to him. He thinks he's found a cure, but it turns out he's being tricked or led on by the monster. And then he they get into the fight. It's not just the simple. I like the idea of the reason that the doctor empowers him more is specifically because he's being manipulated by the monster to do it. Behind the scenes, the monster's acting dumb, acting like a monster, but he's actually manipulating everybody to get more powerful. And then once he gets supercharged, that's when he speaks for the first time. You have him actually speak, but it's not speaking because it's like, oh my gosh, he talked. I gave him more power. It's like I was using all of you the entire time. Now I'm complete what I should have been all along. And then the Wolfman, realizing what happens, attacks him in revenge, and they fight.
That could be interesting.
I just feel like it's underused that they just made the monster again. It's like you put Igor's brain in him, this dude that was like a manipulative, clever, egotistical, and honestly a psychopath. Like the dude was just a perfect villain, and you just don't do anything with him now that he's in the brain of an immortal monster. That seems like a sad underuse of the character, but
yeah,
that's me.
All right, so I'm giving the reins. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. I would focus mainly first on Frankenstein. I wouldn't necessarily start with the Wolfman angle. And what's happening is that Igor is clever, but he is not very smart with using his power and manipulating people. And he keeps getting horribly injured, and the body continues to deteriorate because it's made out of corpses, not living tissue. And he's clever, but he's not necessarily smart enough to change the formula. They can't change the formula. And every time he goes to a new doctor, he ends up having to kill the doctor to keep his secret that he's Igor. And an actual monster, not just a man looking for help.
Right.
So what's happening is he's coming to realize that the body is not necessarily sustainable. And all of the research was destroyed in regards to like the brain transplant and things like that. So he's kind of given up on that angle, and he's like, science is beginning to fail me. Science has failed me. Science has failed the monster. Science is failing my body. So he starts looking for a new solution. It turns out around this time that a man miraculously has emerged from the grave. And the people are...
So you take it from Frankenstein is the angle. The monsters is the originating angle rather than the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm. But we get tales of a man coming out of the tomb and stuff like that. And then we come back and we have like a little bit of a flashback where we kind of have a similar thing where grave robbers came into the tomb and they found that his body isn't decomposed at all. But
Right.
they're a lot more alarmed by that. So they're more terrified of that immediately. It's off-putting. Everything's dead. The wolf's bane is all dried up and dead. Nobody's been in this tomb for 4 years, but his body is fine. Perfectly fine, in fact. And it turns out that the curse not only keeps him immortal, it heals him of his mortal wounds. So it's actually like a curse that perpetually keeps him healthy and perpetually keeps him alive. He literally cannot die.
Right.
As long as he is under the curse. And we kind of get an angle where Igor finds out about the legend, goes and he looks, and he's kind of in the shadows a bit, and he's got a couple of people that he manipulates to give him information and stuff like that before he reveals himself fully. And his angle is he gets Larry to try to give him the curse so that his body can heal and he can be full and whole, but still powerful.
Right.
With the Frankenstein body. And Larry, being good-hearted and good-natured, goes, oh, well, that could kill me. I wouldn't have to worry about the curse anymore. I wouldn't have to worry about hurting anybody anymore. And you say that you can control the curse? Of course I can control the curse. Who do you think I am? Why would I take on an evil curse on myself? But in all reality, it's because he's already corrupt. He's already evil. Becoming a werewolf would not affect him at all. He just wants the healing factor added on top of all this stuff. So he goes and he devises the plan to drain the Wolfman of his life essence. We can keep that angle, or we can find a way to like do it differently where maybe he tries to get bit by the Wolfman. It doesn't really work out because his body is a corpse. It's not the same as a living person. He can't get a curse on a living part of himself.
Right.
So he ends up getting this idea with black magic because science has failed him. So he goes to the gypsy woman, or he goes to somebody else who knew the gypsy woman. Maybe she's died, or maybe he finds like a rival tribe where it's like, these are the people that bestow the curse. Whereas the gypsies that Larry had known were the people who were doing everything in their power to keep the curse under control. But this other gypsy tribe is the ones that actually created the curse to begin with. Anyway, so we get this like black magic ritual, and Larry figures out what is actually happening, and maybe the evil part of the curse lifts a bit, and his good nature comes out, and he can control the wolf, and he fights Igor. And that's kind of the end of the film. Obviously, there's little bits and pieces that I would work a little bit, but it's kind of late, and we've been going on for a while, so...
That's a pretty good summary.
Yeah. So that's kind of the angle I would take. I would definitely go more horror mixed in with supernatural. And like I said, move from just scientist does thing with Frankenstein to Frankenstein is seeking things beyond the realms of science.
Fair enough.
So different angle on that. But anyway, yeah, that's what I think I would do.
That's funny. The movie's premise was the magical creature looks for science for help, and yours is the science person looks for the magic for help.
Just take it, flip it over.
Just do both. Each of them are looking for the other for help, and they just cross paths and then switch off.
Just do like the Wolfie Frankie Power Hour.
Power hour.
And I'm on both sides. One of them's in the village, and the other one ends up in London looking for the other one.
Yeah, there you go. Oh gosh. All right, bud. Let's go.
All right.
Oh.
Anyway, so that is our revisited of Frankenstein meets the Wolfman 1943. We like to drop a little kind of like a blurb about the box set that we watch. We are watching the Universal Classic Monster Movies box set, the Blu-ray set. It has almost all the Universal Monster movies, so if you're interested in following along with the series or watching these for yourself, this is an excellent box set to get. The Universal Classic Monsters Blu-ray box set. Otherwise, we also recommend that if you like this video, let us know by leaving us a like, letting us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you like this content or movie content in general, because we also do reviews, we also talk about bad movies, and we just talk about movies in general. And we have started a new series where we are watching all of the classic Godzilla films. So if that interests you, be sure to subscribe, share us with your friends, and we'll see you guys in the next video.